The internet is back, and the Braves have a huge test out west. And what does that mean? It's time for some Braves talk. With the undefeated season dream alive for the Braves, we continue to roll on as the game against Washington State out west, 11 p.m. Eastern time, which absolutely sucks for people like me. Let's get after it, fam. Welcome to Braves Talk. It's the Iceman Matt Freites from cold Dartmouth, Massachusetts. And of course, in Peoria, Illinois, we have the pals, Coach and OG. Fellas, welcome to the internet and welcome to Braves Talk.
Iceman. We got Dad here. Braves fans, thanks for joining us. The Braves are in Pullman, Washington tonight, getting ready to take on the Washington State Cougars. It's definitely a big one, big non-conference opponent here early in the season. The Braves have a little adversity going into this one that we'll talk about. So a lot of excitement. Thank you for joining us. Chime into the comments section as we move along here. Dad, how you feeling about the Braves?
Nervous. To be honest with you, just totally nervous. I've watched a little bit of video on Washington State against their game against Portland State, and a little nervous, but I'm rooting for a pull off and get this one done.
So I gotta say, there've been in it last year and the year prior, there've been a handful of times the last couple of years I've been sitting either at a Bradley game in Carver or in the living room watching a game, and it's I think about the Drake game 2 years ago for the regular season championship. Great games last season, whatever else, where I'm just sitting there and I am just a ball of anxiety, super nervous. With every bounce of the ball, I'm so nervous. And I'm thinking to myself in those moments, why do I do this to myself? Why? I mean, but then at the same time, it's so awesome, I think. It's so oddly liberating to emotionally attach yourself to something that you have zero control over sometimes, especially us that are, have families and kids and jobs and all this stuff that's so structured and regimented, and to kind of just go all in on something that you have no control over, and for it to impact you both positively and negatively as it goes, it's kind of it's exhilarating, honestly, which is a big part of why most of us are probably fans, but at the same time, thrilling, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, you're bleeding Bradley red.
Hey, it's in my name, right?
I mean,
exactly.
That's kind of why we have the show, right, fellas? So I do want to say to everybody out front that I'm here, and I'm here because I truly have fallen in love with this fan base. And this is a day for me. Been up since 2:40 in the morning, driven all the way from Virginia to Massachusetts, and yet we're still here, and I want to make sure we put on a good show. And speaking of a good show, fellas, I think the Braves put on a good show in the first game of the season, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say so. And Iceman, overcoming some adversity tonight, just like the Braves are going to in Pullman. But you're right. The Braves came out, defeated Southeast Missouri State 88-60 in the opener to get out to 1-0. One of the surprising things that jumped out to me, just over 5,000, people in attendance, or 5,014 tickets sold. Anyways, we know how some of those season ticket things go.
The statistician, I get it.
But a good crowd for an opener against a lesser known, no-name opponent, really, I guess, and that's no disrespect to SEMO. That just is what it is.
Burn.
And the Braves came out and took care of business. I was disappointed that they never played all three 7-footers at the same time, but the Braves had plenty going on their end to keep me engaged. And I think that one of the things that really stuck out, too, in addition to the nice crowd, was that Duke and Zeke, probably our two best scorers coming into the season, are expected to be our two best scorers, only combined for 14 points, and we still go out there and win by nearly 30. So that's a testament to the rest of the roster. The bench came in. They were major contributors, and there's plenty of guys we're going to highlight here as we go through this game quickly. But, I felt good about what I saw the other night, and Dad, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Man, I got to say it. 6 points. Sorry for the earthquake. 6 points, 7 boards in 11 minutes. I take that line from Meta every game.
I knew it was coming.
Every game. and more minutes he gets, he's going to be able to put up more points, get more boards, do some other things.
If he can be what he's been in the exhibition and the opening game, like that's plenty. It really is. Like it's plenty. And I think that, we all see this big body, and he looks good, man. I turned around to Kevin, who sits behind us. I was like, Kevin, he looks good. Like he's looks like he's really put the time in the weight room and
fused.
Yeah. Well, I mean, physically he looks good. He's cut up a little bit, and you're right. He seems more in tune with what's happening out there. He seems like he's got some confidence. And I do think if he's able to continue to string games like this together, it's only going to improve.
He's getting into the position he needs to be in on the floor more often than not. Where, last 2 years, he's just been out of position, getting fouls, silly fouls. And this year, it seems like he's just, fighting for the position that he needs to get in. And that's a very good sign for us.
And for those of you looking for early Christmas gifts for Rick, if the Bradley NIL crew has any type of meta merchandise that we can possibly get in there so that Rick can have his shrine and continue to do something like this that's behind me of just all meta pictures, I think that'd be wonderful.
I've got a Janovic shirt, but it's got the number 4 on it. So I need a 14.
Upgrade.
Yeah, but that means you're the hipsters of meta. You were there before everybody liked him with his new number. So, but gentlemen, I do want to ask you a question because obviously with Zeke and Duke not being the focal point, right? They're not out there doing the majority of the production on offense, and still the team looks this good. I would like to think maybe that's not what Brian Wardle wants, because obviously you want your best players, some of your most dynamic players, to be contributing. But I think if you were to ask him behind closed doors, it would kind of make him feel good that it was so all-encompassing with everybody contributing. The bench, 37 points, and not having to put all the burden on them, because I think later in the season they're going to need it. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. And on the post-game show, Coach talked about how, it was very obvious from the get-go that SEMO was trying to take Duke out of the game. And their strategy was effective for the most part, but Duke didn't get frustrated. He didn't try to force anything. He did what leaders do, and he tried to make his teammates better. He found guys, and he played with, he took what they gave him, and there was a couple guys, Christian Davis and Almar Atlason, that were the benefactors of that. Christian went for 15 points and had 6 boards. Almar 13 and 8, and that's damn near what Almar's line was just in the first half. He got in some foul trouble in the second half, unfortunately. But, I mean, he was on fire from behind the three-point line, and goes from having, I think, didn't he have like 0 boards in the exhibition, or nearly? Maybe, very few. He didn't rebound well in the exhibition. Came out and had 8 rebounds the other night, which was great.
Yep. And then we got Bully. Let's not forget Bully and the job that he did. Them taking away Duke. And they did play Duke and Bully same time, a few minutes here and there. But when he was out on the court, they didn't know how to deal with him. They try, Bully would, drive to contact, get fortunate, make some runners and get fouled in the process. And, he came up with 15 points.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't play like a freshman at all. I mean, and physically, he doesn't look like a freshman.
Hey, we're going to need it this week, too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, he is just built like a brick shit house. I mean, that is the epitome of that phrase. I mean, and the guy, like you said, he plays the contact, and he is not afraid to mix it up. And, that's going to be huge for him. He plays with a ton of confidence as well. And I think you could say that for all of our, we've got this like Milwaukee pipeline building, and, all the way from Darius to Marion Birch.
3-headed Milwaukee monster.
There you go. There. And down to Bully. These guys play with a ton of confidence, and you love to see that, because we're going to need it here down the stretch.
They're physical. Yeah,
definitely physical. And we talked about Almar bouncing back, especially on the boards. Christian Davis, he didn't have his best game in the exhibition, comes out and, knocks down 15 points, shoots the ball well from behind the arc. And he's one of those guys that, last year I've always really liked Christian, because I feel like he hustles and he does the little things. He's not, he's a dive on the floor guy. He's always putting forth maximum effort, and it's really easy to get behind the guy like that. So, some good signs there. We didn't see as much Corey Thomas as we saw in the exhibition, but that's probably because Darius Hannah played, which was a nice thing to see as well.
But he put in some good quality minutes and did some positive things when he was on the floor.
And that's just it. I mean, whether you play, whether you play 20 minutes or he's going to play, in that 8 to 10 minute range, whatever it is, come in and be a spark plug. Come in and make a game-changing play. And I think we have a bench full of guys that are ready and capable of doing that.
Exactly.
I mean, with all the continuity that you're bringing back, even with the new players and everything, I think in game one, sometimes teams can come out looking sluggish, right? When you're like, okay, they're working some cobwebs out, and that's usually pretty acceptable for the most part, unless of course you're Illinois State. We have to LOL. I believe they did lose their first game, so that's always interesting. Anyway,
yeah, they came back and won last night, though.
Oh, good for them. And the thing is, though, right? You see everything. I threw myself off trying to get a joke in there, so that's what I get for trying to be funny. But when you talk about bringing continuity back, and then also the first game, like, you want them to come out looking like this, especially since preseason they're chosen to be the best team in the Valley. High expectations. It's not as easy to play with high expectations. So for them to come out and look so dominant, with everybody contributing. And yes, of course, there's always going to be things to work on. The season is very long. You're not going to get it all in the first shot. I think this is actually a great performance, something to build on. And we already talked about the game that they have coming up with Washington State. But unfortunately, in between last week's debacle of an episode, Monday's game, and then today's game, the Braves received some pretty sour news in the form of an injury to Demarion Birch, 2 to 3 weeks. He's going to be out, and sustained it in practice, foot injury and all that. I think that does change the calculus a little bit, but I think you guys have some insight as to how other players on the roster, especially in this game tonight and games going forward for the next 2 to 3 weeks, can really pick up the slack in the next man up mentality.
Yeah, of course. So we talked about Jaquan Johnson. I think everybody's eyes have shifted to him as soon as they heard about this injury. And of course, we all hope that Demarion gets healthy and, he's able to come back at full strength sooner than later, or however long it takes. But, we're going to need him this season. There's no doubt about that. But hey, next man up, like we said, we got Jaquan, who had a hell of a game against SEMO, and we're going to need to see more of that. And it'll be interesting to see if, it's a little different when you're, let's call him the third or, the fourth guard, right? And maybe like you're not playing with a lot of pressure because like anything you do is exceeding expectations sort of to some degree. Well, now like something's expected of you. How do you play with those expectations? So I'm curious to see how he handles that, and especially handles that on the road and not just down the road on the other side of the country tonight. So he's going to have an opportunity to really like emerge and assert himself as a big time Division I basketball player. I mean, which he is, but great players show up on the road, and so we'll see if he's ready to go. And I have no doubt that he will be. Dad.
Yeah, exactly. On Bully, he just needs to come in and play bully ball. I think Coach Wardle said that the other night in the post game. He plays bully ball, plays his game. We're gonna be all right.
I think one thing to consider too, we're going to be on the road, so who knows what the whistles are going to be like, right? So but I'm saying we may get into the bench a little bit, especially at the guard position. It could get interesting. We've all had, we've all really been kind of like had some high hopes for Connor Dillon, who unfortunately has been suffering, from a back injury, and he's going to be put in a position here to have to contribute, and hopefully he's getting healthy. I don't know the details, and it's none of my damn business, but hopefully he's getting himself up to speed, getting healthy, because he can help us, and he's going to need to help us here in the next few weeks.
And on the road, I think one of the things we usually experience, other places on the road, they only had 30-some hundred people at their game against Portland State.
Yeah, they don't look like they get a great turnout.
So,
but the Braves are coming to town, right? The Braves bring a crowd. I mean,
pretty well.
Hey, you know what? Their fans might turn out because they're taking on the preseason Missouri Valley favorites, right?
Well, yeah, that's
the Braves are worthy of a crowd,
and we're ranked, much higher. So, I mean, we'll see here in a little bit. Might be a party night out there.
I saw a clip of Oregon's football team, right, when they played Michigan State, and Dan Lanning, their coach, had like practiced to come out, and he called a timeout late in the game because he wanted the team to turn around and watch the Michigan State fans leaving the stadium. And and his whole mantra was like from the movie Gladiator, "Are you not entertained?" Because they're just drubbing Michigan State at this point in time, and the fans are leaving. And I'm hoping we're in that situation. We're maybe under the 10-minute mark left in the game, and we're well in control. And Wardle calls a timeout, and the boys can turn around and say, "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah, yeah. Now just go on from bully for a little bit now here, and I think what we're going to need we're going to need a little more defense and some more offensive output from Zeke and Christian Davis as well, and hopefully Duke gets his game back, his shooting.
I don't think it's gone. They just they trapped him. They double teamed him. I mean, they did all sorts of stuff to try to take him out of the game.
Exactly. But, and listen, read some things from the board today that, guy made a very good point. This is the type of game where Zeke in past has shined. So we're going to hope tonight that's going to be another one of them.
Big game Zeke.
Yep. Big game Zeke. And that's, this is the first big game of the year for us. So hopefully we got all cylinders, not just Bully, not just Duke, not Zeke, CD. Let's get them all going.
Well, we haven't even talked about the front line because, when you look at, we watched, obviously, you watched the entire Portland State game. I watched a little bit with you the other night just to get a little glimpse at them. They're definitely they're more, they're the best team we've played so far. They're more athletic big men than what we've seen so far. So it'll be interesting to see how we adapt in those situations.
Yeah. We're longer.
Yeah. I mean,
they're bulkier. We're longer.
It seemed like Portland State struggled to stop like the dribble drive. And like, there was a lot of, a lot of open driving lanes to the basket. And I think that, we focus on the defensive end a lot. So I'm not too worried about that. But at the same time, we got to stay out of foul trouble.
Atlison and Meta is going to have big games inside, because they're our two biggest inside, frontline guys. And Meta obviously being taller. I think their tallest guy's 6'11". Isn't that what I looked up the other day? 6'11". So, and they go, I think, 245. But they only go 6 guys. I mean, that's.
I think that's going to benefit us.
Yeah, you get past their 6th guy. They're freshmen and sophomore, mostly freshmen on the bench.
Right.
So very little experience.
And we're not in midseason form yet. But one thing I feel like Wardle teams, especially in the last handful of years, is that the longer the game goes on, the stronger we get. It's like if we're in a close game and we get to the under 8 timeout in the second half, I'm like, it's like we got them right where we want them. So we're taking them into deep water because I always feel like we are the better conditioned team in those situations, and a lot of times it seemed to work out that way.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a physical game. They had 3 guys foul out. Like I said, they had their starting 5. Three of the starting 5s fouled out of the game.
And Portland State went out to a big lead early against them, right?
Yeah, they did.
Like a 23-2 or something. I mean, it was
the 21-4 before Washington State started their comeback. And then I think Washington State finally took the lead at like 28-27, something like that.
The basketball town of Pullman, Washington finally came through for the Cougars against Portland State because we all know it's synonymous with Rupp Arena, basically.
They only won them by 8. There was no defense played that second half. Both teams played even, 54-54.
So give us a little not necessarily your 3, you breaking them down in depth, but just give us a little high level glance at Washington State, and then we'll get into you answering your 3 questions.
Well, they've really I got 7 guys written down here. One of the 7 scored only 1 point. The rest of the points were scored by the other 6. So in the minutes they put in, you got one guy 23, 29, 32, 31, 30, 27. But they got 3 seniors, a junior, and a redshirt sophomore. The other key thing is, unlike a lot of other teams that have a new coach coming in and then basically have to replace an entire team, this is the team with the new coach. There's 1 kid returning from last year's Washington State team, and don't even really think he played much, but
he brought 4 with him.
He brought 4 players
Washington,
with him, right? And all 4 of them started.
Yeah, which is going to be. I mean, this has become very common though in the transfer portal era, right?
Yes.
Look at Indiana football, right? I mean, half that roster was playing at James Madison last season.
Well, now let's take some of this in perspective, because one, the continuity of the coach and the majority of the players who are playing, are very well versed with each other. But 2, they all came from Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington was, when were they, 21-11 last year?
Yeah, they won the Big Sky, and then they were upset in the first round or I guess they had a bye, but their first round of the conference tournament, they got knocked off by Sacramento State.
But, so, I mean, they won last year's team. These four guys and the coach, they were winners last year.
I looked through the schedule. I mean, they gave it, Eastern Washington last year. They played some they had a lot of bye games, I think, where they got bought, and they played some big time opponents. And a few of them, I mean, they looked like they were in the game. A couple margins like 10 or less against some higher, some Power 5 teams, Power 4 teams.
Yeah.
And but
they gave up a lot of points at Eastern Washington last year too. So I don't think they're coached defense very much. So they may be in for a treat tonight. Let's go BU defense, even though we're a little down on, what we're normally used to defensively, but I still think our defensive principles are still there.
Kevin put up there 15 threes, 15 twos, 25 made free throws. I mean, that's balance, I guess, but that's what happens when you score 100.
But sometimes games like this, when you talk about physicality, and last year, do you guys remember how many times we talked about the free throw disparity that Bradley was under and that type of thing? And this is the kind of game, in my opinion, where you're traveling across the country, you're coming off a big win at home, so you kind of feel comfortable there. And then you get a physical game. And that's where free throws made. That's a stat that is pointed out here that kind of sticks out to me. And that could be a factor, especially down the stretch in a game like this. If it's physical, teams are getting tired. And if Bradley is out conditioning them, hopefully they can get to the free throw line more, make some of those, make some of those, and kind of put the pressure on Washington State to have to hit some threes and do some things.
Just laughing at my dad. Trying to read the chat.
That's what I'm here for, Rick. Just let me go ahead and there you go, buddy. Only one bench guy contributed. He did score 20. Yeah. But I agree, that's a depth problem. But the whole point is this is the kind of game where those micro stats are going to really aggregate into larger gains for the Braves. And hopefully last year's trend isn't going to be this year's trend as well. And this could be the kind of game where we see that. And even talking about going back to guys stepping up, having the depth at guard. One of the benefits of having a guy out, even though it sucks to have one of your better, more dynamic players out, is these younger players do get the minutes. And I always talk about this in football, Brad, where minutes count, snaps count. And in this particular instance, they see more. So if later on, especially come conference tournament time, you need those minutes, you need those guys to really step up. They've now seen game action and can really pull from that experience. And so that's a positive silver lining that could be taken from a game like this, even if the Braves lose, and also with the Birch injury. So that's my little
and that's one place where we're gonna miss DeMarion is in the getting to the line aspect of this, because that's his game, man. Take the ball to the rack, get to the free throw line. The good thing is that's exactly what Jaquan Johnson does and did the other night. And I think having Zeke back, Zeke was being aggressive and taking the ball to the basket. Christian Davis has shown he's not afraid to do that. I thought that it seemed like we made a point a little more to drive the ball to the basket and to play to contact, which is a really good sign. I mean, and our friend we talked about from the exhibition that wanted the ball to be pounded inside, he would have been happy because, we had 34 points in the paint the other night against SEMO. So, nearly half our points came in the paint, which is a good sign. Yeah. But I totally agree, though. It's going to be the little things, especially when you're on the road against a good opponent. It's going to be all the little things that add up to achieving victory.
Hey, Rick, do you have a prediction for Meta's stat line tonight?
I'll go about eight points, 8 points, 9 boards.
That might, okay.
How many turnovers?
I'm kidding. 2.
No, I actually think this could be a weekly segment.
I'm totally down for that. Yes. I hope you're right, Dad. I totally hope you're right. I would love to see it. If Meta has that stat line, the Braves win. Yep. For sure. And no, love to see that. So I guess now we could probably hammer into let's get into breaking it down a little further, Dad. So we'll start with key players. So who are the key players for Washington State that we need to worry about?
I'm going with 3, even though you still got all 6 to worry about. We can't double team anybody. In my opinion, we just can't. Maybe briefly for a second or two, but my 3 players are Cal Meese. He's a junior, 17 points, 5 assists, a board. He was one of the players that fouled out, though, which that'll be upon some of my weaknesses for them. And then Coward, another guard, senior guard, 23 points, 4 assists. There's a big one, 12 boards. We got to keep him off the boards, if that's a possibility.
That's where Meta comes in.
That's right.
Yeah, Meta. Well, they got some other big guys that Meta's going to be guarding. And then the guy off the bench, another Watts kid. They got two players named Watts. Don't believe they're related unless they're cousins or something like that. But
West Virginia
call it
is.
No, I didn't.
Well, that's the kind of information we're going to need.
I just knew they were born in two different places, and one's a redshirt sophomore and the other's just a sophomore.
Wonderful.
But anyway, the kid, the Watts off the bench, scored 20 points.
Are you going to call them where they're from? Watts, let's say like Eastern Washington, West. What are you going to call it? You know what I'm talking about? That way we can distinguish. I need to know these things.
Watts is the one player that does return.
Okay.
From last year's Washington State team. The other, I tell you, the guys that came from Eastern Washington is Eric Strupp, big guy, really good. He had 12 points and assists, 4 boards, and then the other Watts kid, the redshirt sophomore from Eastern Washington, 11 points, 2 assists, 4 boards. He fouled out. Eric Strupp fouled out as well. And then Price, another big guy, 16 points and assists, 7 rebounds. So he's going to be a handful inside. And then Coward, the guy that scored 23 with 12 boards, he's from Eastern Washington. So they brought some players with them, but man, we're going to be so deep, we're deep enough, even with Birch being down, we're deep enough that we're going to be a little fresher, but we just got to keep our fouls down.
Yeah. And so moving on from the key players, what are their strengths? What you see in the Portland State game that are things that we're going to have to worry about?
Their physicality, they pretty decent 3-point shooters, 15 to 32, 47% basically from 3. So we got to watch that. And I've seen them hit some pretty deep ones, and all of them can hit them. Their best guy is Watts off the bench, the Ivan Watts, I think or Isaiah Watts. He was 4 for 5.
And that's one thing I liked that Coach said on the postgame show, and it's kind of I honestly had never heard it before. It's probably very common in the world of basketball, but he's like, we don't play hope defense. We don't hope you miss. We want to make you miss, and I like that a lot. And I mean, it's because there's a lot of times where guy will shoot a 3 and I'll miss it. I'm like, and Coach loses his mind because somebody has a blown assignment, and I'm like, he missed, but obviously coaches don't view things that way either.
Who's going to get the assignment on Coward? The defensive assignment on him? Is it going to be Christian Davis or is it going to be Zeke? 6'6", 216.
Zeke could be the best defensive player on this team if he wants to be.
Yeah.
And that's not. I'm not trying to take any shots at Zeke. I think Zeke, he is a scorer. He sees himself as a scorer. But because defense, a lot of defenses want to, right?
Right.
Obviously, you have to have the physical tools. That helps a ton. But it's just want to.
Yeah.
And and I'm sure that those are conversations that are being had with Zeke every day, is pushing him to be that guy, because if he embraces that, he could be the stopper that we're looking for.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're going to need Zeke, Christian Davis on one of either Coward or Calmeese, or one take one take the other, and then the other Isaiah Watts off the bench. We need someone to take care of him. So
that's good.
He threw up 20.
That's
Next
good.
one.
And we'll get there one second. So one thing that Kevin mentioned is we're gonna have to cover some minutes, and he had 27. I saw 21 on the box score, 21, 27, whatever, 20 plus minutes that we're gonna have to cover with the Birch injury. And I agree. I mean, it's gonna have to come from Allison and Thomas and Dylan. Those guys are gonna have to. We're gonna probably see some different rotations tonight than maybe we saw, obviously, and. Atlason's going to have to stay out of foul trouble. That was something he struggled with last year a lot. And if he's going to be a difference maker on the team this year, which we're expecting him to be, he's got to stay out of foul trouble.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, looking at Kevin's comment here about this probably being the biggest starting lineup we play all year, not to think too far ahead, obviously, but this is the kind of matchup where it could look a lot like a possible first-round NCAA matchup where you're talking about size discrepancies or things like that. So, again, there is a lot to be kind of ascertained here, even in a loss, right? I mean, they're going to win, obviously, but the idea is like, trying to take away the bigger picture, that's where I always come in, but I do appreciate Kevin's comment. And of course, the biggest news that the Watts guys are not related, although he did say he did not call and ask, though. So we need to get some better.
Big if true.
I agree. We need to get some better fact finders here. We need some interns, things like this. So anybody who would like to get the job of the OG's intern, please apply. MattySmedia@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And so, Dad, go ahead and move on here to Washington State weaknesses. Where do you think the Braves could exploit the Cougs?
Well, with three of their starters fouling out, they're going to be, on the other. There's a couple of them I didn't write down all of the fouls and what they had. I just noted the three that fouled out, but I think they're going to be a high fouling team, so that's a weakness. And
some of that's up to us, right? We need to play.
Well,
into that.
And then here's the other stat that's going to be up to us against Portland State. They had 21 turnovers. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that is absolutely a lot, especially for a team that's supposed to be pretty good like that. But
I guarantee you, we're going to defend better than Portland State did.
Oh yeah.
So when you say high foulers, Rick, are you talking like John Chaney enforcers from Temple days, or are we talking about maybe a little bit less on that level? Yeah. I could actually see Brian Wardle going in there. I'll kill you, man. I'll kill you, man.
Yeah. More like Detroit Bad Boys.
Nice.
They weren't. They weren't that physical, but yeah. There's some big guys, and they're gonna. Who drop? I can see two of their big guys just surrounding Darius. If he gets the ball down low, and
I picked Darius.
Oh yeah, Darius is going to have a lot more athleticism and quickness than any of their guys that they got that can guard him.
Wazzu's not ready for that smoke, and they're going to get it.
They are going to get it. I would say that if the Braves can come away with a victory here, even a close one, but if they can come away looking strong, I think this is a really big building block. Because then they come back home against UTSA, and obviously that's going to be more comfortable. I think they have a heavy workload in front of them, but I think we're going to learn a lot. I think they're going to learn a lot about themselves. And again, the results will be what they will be. But it's really early in the season, but this is definitely, I don't want to say signature win territory, but you want to take care of business. A big road win is going to get a lot of points, especially later on in the season.
Yeah, this would be a big signature
win. These are games that just Bradley struggled in kind of historically, and especially under Brian Wardle. And it's not that Washington State's a world beater by any means, but it's still a good opponent in their arena, long ways away, several time zones away. There's just a lot going on that you could make. You can make a ton of excuses if things don't go Bradley's way. But when you really get down to it, it's plain and simple. If Bradley is who we all think they are, this is a game they should win. If this is a Missouri Valley Conference championship team that we think can go to the NCAA tournament and win a couple games, this is a game you win. And I think I'm ready for Bradley to take that next step and be that team.
Yeah.
And going and making getting a win like this on the road is a huge step towards embracing that.
And what makes me nervous about this game, mainly is on the road, a big game, even though we're ranked KenPom higher, much higher than them.
Right, 79, right? 79
at last check, 79 to 117.
Yeah.
And,
it's early,
but this is just our second game. We have generally, I think all the fan base, they're a little bit nervous about this because we generally struggle early in the non-con, so
something feels different though. I'm serious. I just feel like this team has a different, they just have a little different swagger about them. There's a different mentality.
Yeah.
I think they're embracing the fact that they're picked as the favorites.
This could very well be one of, not just one of, but Wardle's absolute best team, top to bottom.
Yeah, but they've got to prove them, right?
Yeah,
just like
exactly. Prove them. Let's see your model in action, Braves. Prove them.
Yeah, I think the identity of this team still needs to be defined, though. Obviously, with the expectations, playing with that is a lot more difficult. And Brad, you always talk about how Brian Wardle likes to play with the chip on his shoulder, likes to coach with the chip on his shoulder. And I think the chip on his shoulder could be the expectations. And that's kind of the motivating factor here is like, people expect us to be good. So we actually need to go out here and live that mantra. We need to live those expectations. And I think that this is the kind of game with everything that we've talked about that I think is really going to get them to that level. And if they don't make it there, Brad, to your point, how they have struggled historically, and it just gets filed into the same category, right? But this is a chance to sort of right those wrongs. But before we kind of move on to previewing the rest of the week, I do want to ask you guys a question because I did take a shot at Illinois State a little bit earlier, but I realized that maybe I did so in error because at this point in time, the Valley needs to look good across the board. And I think what makes them look good is every single non-conference win that they can rack up along the way. And conference play is going to be tough. That's a different story. Like, we can celebrate their losses in non-conference all day, but is it fair to say that we should be rooting for the Valley to win as many games as possible in the non-conference to make the Valley look as strong? And so,
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, I did take a shot at them earlier because it's fun, but at the same time, I mean,
Bobby.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and that's why I did so. But in thinking about it, as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I started thinking about, well, this is non-conference. It's a different story. And we need the Valley to look strong, especially if we're talking about this being potentially, like, it could be a multi-bid conference, right? Like, if you want that, you have to see that stuff happening now.
Well, this is where multi-bid part gets.
It's where you make or break it.
Yes.
This non-conference, top to bottom in the conference, non-conference schedule is what's going to, put a solid foundation into committees later, into rankings leading up to, selection Sunday, But, it's like, I'm going to say this about ISU and the loss the other night, and that is, now they were down 2 players that I believe were looked at the beginning of the year to be key players in this transfer, Schoenberg, and I don't know if I'm going to probably chop his name, Lieb, the interior guy, because they're lacking a little bit of interior play right now. But they were missing those 2 guys. And first game, maybe it's going to took a game like that to wake them up a little bit. And maybe they play gangbusters, the rest of the non-con. It's yet to be seen. But let's see. Let's hope maybe that was the case.
I mean, Rick
and Kevin.
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was saying Kevin mentioned, in the comment there, this, kind of alluding back a little bit when we were talking about the expectations. The standard's extremely high. When coach is getting upset, banging on the scorer's table, up 23 late, but I'll tell you what, man, and I kind of like it a little bit because he is evolving a little bit, and they've done a better job at targeting players that fit the system, not just with their physical tools, but mentally. And because it's not always easy to play for someone that is so demanding, but that's what wins. I mean, look at Bobby Hurley. I mean, that dude is hardcore.
Intense.
I've just seen some clips. I mean, he is an intense dude. And did you see the little clip when they were doing the whole pomp and circumstance before the game with the national championship trophy? They're posing for a picture, and they're standing there for like 10 seconds, and he's like, "Are we done?" And then someone like nods their head, yes, and he's just out of there. Like, he couldn't care less. Like, on to the next one.
The thing about what Kevin's talking about, what we're talking about here, you guys remember, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago when Nick Saban would get criticized because in a blowout win, he would be upset that certain things didn't go right. And people would say, why would you care? You just won by a lot. But keeping that standard high. And I think sometimes with young people, and let's not forget that this Braves team, they're still in college, right? They're young people. Managing expectations, getting caught up in emotions and everything. The reason that the coach gets paid the kind of money that they do for long periods of time is to keep that standard there, right? Is to keep it in fresh in reminding everybody. So yeah, they win a game by nearly 30 points. Wardle looks like he's pissed off because these things that they're not doing right in a game like this are going to show themselves later on. So this is the standard. And we talked about this last time, Rick, before the internet went out. Coaches that leave, the culture leaves. This is the culture on display. This is the culture of Bradley basketball. And the players that are in it, whether they're young or old, are in it for this reason. And so the next man up, all those people that have to cover these minutes, they know what they're getting into. They came here for that reason. And so I agree with you, Brad. I think this is setting the tone. He's not just out there complaining to complain. He's complaining because Brian Wardle knows that those mistakes that they're making are going to come back to haunt them if they don't address them now. You can't get caught up in a 30-point win and say everything's great, because that's when you get nipped in the bud real quick in this league.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to play 40 minutes. You can't have the first time you play a full 40 minutes be in a close game.
Anybody watch the Murray State Pitt game tonight?
Perfect segue, Rick. Thank you.
Gotta play 40 minutes.
Well,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. You can't wait. You can't wait until you're in one to decide that you're going to play the right way for 40 minutes and pay it and focus for 40 minutes.
Game for till like 4 minutes to go.
Right. So my point is that you want to encourage your team. You want to coach and hold that standard that you're locked in for 40 minutes, whether you're playing UConn or you're playing ICC, whatever community college. I mean, you're locked in for 40 minutes, and then you're creating those habits. And I think that's a good thing. And if and I tell you what, when you win, you can get away with that shit. And not that it's something that it's out of line, but I think that stuff is tolerated. That stuff is tolerated much more by players and the fan base when you're winning.
100% agree with you. So, guys, this game is coming up at 11 o'clock Eastern time, which is an hour and 17 minutes from now. So I think we're going to learn a lot about the Braves during that time period. I mentioned earlier that they're going to be coming back to Carver, I believe, on Tuesday to play UTSA. I think surface level, that's a game that they should also be favorable in that position, but we are not ready for a full breakdown. But, Brick, if you had to say, not even considering what the result is going to be tonight, how do you feel just at a very high level about Bradley's chances at Carver on Tuesday?
Oh, but, we should. Still got to play 40 minutes, got to play the game. That's why they're played. That's why officials are there, and that's why we keep score. But anyway, it's the University of Texas, San Antonio. First-year coach and all but one player are new. They're transfers. What day I put down? They lost an exhibition. I don't remember who it was to.
Oof.
Been there.
84-63.
Oof.
And then I remember the exhibition was against USC.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
it is.
Remember looking that up.
No, never mind. I take that back.
Yeah, but then they beat a crosstown
Non-burn
school, Trinity. Trinity College is down in San Antonio. They just beat them 103-77.
All right.
But now Austin Claunch is the new coach. He he coached as an assistant at Alabama last year for 1 year. And then prior to that was at Nicholls State for 5 years and took them to the NCAA, a couple tournaments, a couple times.
Really, this is a game, like we talked about, this is a game that Bradley should come out and take control of and win. Yeah. It'll be interesting depending on how tonight goes. Obviously, we're hoping for a victory. And sometimes when you come off of a big victory, teams have a hard time putting the next one, putting two together, right? Yep. And then kind of coming down from whatever that may be, that emotional high, especially when we're talking about you had to travel in and things like that. So I think we're going to, a week from now, we're going to have a really good idea of if this Braves team is what we think it is or not. And I'm confident in that they're going to be. I have no reason not to believe that. I believe in this team. I believe this coaching staff. All the ingredients are there. And, of course, we still got to roll the ball out and play the game. But you got to feel great about it. And my favorite part as they come back to Carver next week is we're going to start seeing that build up game after game. Attendance is going to start getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And, I'm looking forward to that time when we've got 8,000 regularly in Carver. That's going to be fantastic.
And when one of them is me.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Sneak peek for 2025 for everybody out there. Gentlemen, I think that we have covered a lot of good ground today. We've had some amazing, amazing comments and amazing interactions. And I think I should say, and I speak for both of you guys too, that last week was obviously not our best, but everybody stuck with us. Everybody has been patient. And we have had so many people continue to make sure that we still are doing this show and make sure that we know that there is value that we can add. And I think we want to continue to do that. So hopefully we did that tonight. We did so without any interruptions, fellas. 46 minutes in, we didn't have any problems whatsoever. So I think we, like the Braves, are on. But Brad, you made me think of something when you said we have all the ingredients. I see the first Braves Talk shirt that says "Let Wardle Cook" on it. We will have that at our merch store sometime later this season. Rick, you have one more thing to say before we sign off?
I want to give a shout out to young man. I call him a young man because I'd be much older than him. But Wes Johnson last Monday night happened to see me and Brad walking into the stadium, and he came up and, he introduced him. We kind of knew who he was, but this the first time we interacted in that. So we got to, meet him face to face, and that was a good thing. So anybody out there who sees us, hey, say something.
Yeah.
OG be signing autographs at halftime behind section.
Damn, you beat me to it.
221.
I was going to say,
You keep forgetting where you're at.
Wes was starstruck seeing the local Peoria celebrity at Carver Arena. Whoa, what is going on?
Yeah,
That's the kind of
good
impact.
guy. He's a good guy.
Absolutely.
I like
Absolutely.
C7.
100%. That is the kind of impact that we are having. So everybody out there, if you are not following us here, you're not subscribed, please do so. Like, all that good stuff. We like comments. We like interaction. We are in audio too, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. If you are subscribed to us there, listen to some episodes, give us some ratings because it allows us to kind of pop on the charts. We're going to come back next week, probably with an episode, probably after the game on Tuesday. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I'll be in my regular digs, but if not, the show goes on, fellas. Hope this finds everybody well and safe. From me, the OG, and the coach, this has been Braves Talk. The opinions and viewpoints expressed on I&C Sports are those of Matt Freites, Brad Powell, and their guests, and not necessarily those of the Matty Ice Media Network. I&C Sports is exclusively owned by Matt Freites and Brad Powell and is brought to you by the Matty Ice Media Network.